So, apologies to Byron, who's sitting next to me, but I'm not a huge fan of the cult of the coach that we have in sports. And it happens in all sports. Certain coaches have such a huge mythology grow around them. They get all the credit for the way a team is winning, as opposed to, the players who are actually the ones playing. This can get uncomfortable, especially if the coach is white and most of the players are not. So I always just try to take a more nuanced approach. Absolutely give credit to the coaches when they deserve it, without trying to turn them into gods. And that is why it has been particularly interesting to watch so much of the sports world fall in love with the Sixers these last couple months, while doing the exact opposite of coach worship. Think about it. What names do you keep hearing? Joel Embiid, and Ben Simmons, and JJ Redick, and yes, even Sam Hinkie, who hasn't worked for the team for more than 2 years. Through it all, the person who's remained almost anonymous to the average sports fan has been Coach Brett Brown, which is funny since when you talk about the process, he's actually the only one on that list who has been there the whole time. And he has had by far one of the toughest jobs, because when a franchise specifically embarks on a strategy of losing as much as possible to collect as many draft picks as possible, the big danger is that young players, you bring them in, they become so embedded in that losing culture, they can't just flip the switch later in their careers. So during the season that the Sixers started 1-30 and lost 72 games, or during the 4 seasons actually, that they lost 253 games, well, it was up to Brown to somehow figure out how to keep frustration and discontent from ripping players apart. Some of what he did was big and some of it was small. I mean, he rearranged the layout of the chairs in the film room, but the idea was that the players would stay more engaged. He brought in guest speakers that ranged from astrophysicists to movie directors. He created once-a-month breakfasts where players worked with the video staff to create PowerPoint presentations on things that interested them. Sometimes players picked an issue, like gun control. Sometimes, like with Robert Covington, the topic was snakes. Often, the breakfast got teammates just understanding each other and talking in new ways. And sometimes, well, when Covington brought an actual snake into the facility, it created a hysterical team bonding moment as several players, including Embiid, ran terrified to the corners of the room.
Amen.
And now the team's playoff logo is, yep, a snake. Most importantly, Brown has been a straight shooter with his players, respecting them instead of talking down to them. And in the locker room last night, after the Sixers advanced, you could see how it paid off. Watch this, especially what happens after Brown tries to give Redick the Sixers bell, which is basically like giving him the game ball.
We have so much more to grow and give. You're going to start playing more and more with us. These playoff experiences, as you guys learn real-time adjustments, and we sit in the film sessions, we have more to give, and we got more to grow, and we know that. JJ Redick, ring this bell, brother.
Oh my God! Congrats on your first career playoff victory, playoff series victory, man. That's a big deal.
The whole moment is amazing and just a good reminder that while the Sixers would absolutely not be where they are today without Joel Embiid, without Ben Simmons, and the players who go out there and do the work every night, they also wouldn't be there without their coach, which they know, even if sometimes it seems no one else does. So Tracy, you look at that team unity of them in the locker room together. They won in 5 games. Do you feel like the Sixers are in control of the East right now?
Well, first of all, I underestimated 76ers, so I just want to say to the Sixers Nation.
You apologize?
I apologize, because I thought, Miami was going to take a stand and win this series. I think this team has 2 things going for them. One, I think, because they're in a bracket where they face either Boston or Milwaukee. Either they face a Boston that's a wounded, team, or Milwaukee is just a team that I believe just not playing great basketball. So I think the bracket really favors them a lot. And secondly, right now they're playing the best basketball in the Eastern Conference. I mean, this team is looking spectacular on offensive end, defensively, their energy level. I mean, it's just infectious the way, it's just spreading around this team. So that's why we play the game. We don't know if they're in control of the East, but I tell you, their path is favoring them.
I agree with you as far as their path is favoring them. And I would even go so far to say is if Boston, which I think will win the series against Milwaukee, I give Philly the edge over Boston right now. And like you said, because of the fact that Boston has players that are hurt, even though they're playing great at home, Philly is such a good, talented young team, and
What
they're
about the
hungry.
other side? There is a whole other side of the bracket, guys.
Well, I'm not worried about that side right now. We're just talking about Philly with a path that I think is so favorable to them to get to that Eastern Conference Finals. Now, who they face, we don't know at this particular time. I would still think it would be the Cleveland Cavaliers because I'm never betting against LeBron. But right now, they got a doorway, in my opinion, to get to that Eastern Conference Finals. And we're not giving Coach Brown enough credit, like you said. We've talked about everything else. And we also have to give Colangelo a lot of credit for sticking with the coach and sticking with the process and seeing this through. And now they're all, reaping the benefits of a great young basketball team.
And adding pieces. I mean, look, this is never as easy as sort of the single line that people like to draw in a Twitter comment, right? I mean, it's very complicated. There were a lot of things that came into play to create this team and this group. Tracy, what I like about what you said when you opened your comments is you told the Sixers to prove themselves, and they did prove themselves to you.
They did
so
that.
I like that.
Here's what I want to say, too, about Sam Hinkie. I know a lot. I didn't like the way, things were handled with him tanking and doing that. If he identified Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons years before they even developed to be who they are, if he was like, okay, we're going to tank, I want those two players right there if we possibly could get them, that man deserves to be in the
genius.
NBA.
Well, Joel
He's a genius if
certainly,
he did.
and the
Seriously.
relationship he and Joel, Ben came later, but the relationship with him and Joel too. He really nurtured Joel through that injury year that Joel had, where he couldn't, that first year where he couldn't play at all, and they sat together and watched games and just all of that stuff. I think is a big credit to him, and it will be interesting to see how other franchises kind of look what the Sixers have done.